Hey, I'm Duke on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it. Hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. We're back today with a donation deck list from Scotty. They have about 60 to 70 reps with this 4-color Maverick deck and wanted to see how it would fare on the channel. They have a background in green-white creature decks and Naya Depths, playing that for about 9 months. So to come to Maverick is really cool, and obviously they have a pretty sweet list here. One of the changes that I made before the league was nurturing peatland. I wanted this deck to have a way to make use of the graveyard a little bit more, and with Ramanap and Knight in the deck, it's really nice to have a canopy land because it either allows you to hopefully draw or turn a land into a spell, or with Ramanap against a deck like Jeskai Control that might not be in a situation where Wasteland is that great, getting back peatland each turn and drawing an extra card is really relevant. So I think it's definitely worth having a canopy land in the mana base, and to make room for that we actually dropped the second Taiga. A little bit odd, but I did want to have the extra black source as well for Bayou, but also have a green source for our 8 ways to ramp turn 1. So they have some pretty big events coming up, some Legacy 5Ks and I believe a 10K trios, and expect a lot of Reanimator and a lot of Jeskai Control. So with Reanimator, you can see that they have 4 Endurance in the main deck, 3 Surgicals in the sideboard. The 4th Endurance is something they're testing out and seeing how it feels. So hopefully today we get some data around that. And obviously 4 Boo is a choice you don't see too often. But if you're expecting a lot of control decks and a lot of mid-range decks, making sure you have Boo on turn 4 or turn 5 is obviously a great place to be. Minskin Boo is probably the best, most unfair thing a green-red X deck can be doing right now. Mark Strassman, I know, recently wrote a bit of a piece for me for an upcoming article on the Green Sun Zenith, where he believes he's found the sweet spot of 3, but really keen to see how the full 4 go, because obviously with additional copies, you can get that hamster going pretty quick. And maybe even swing in and then play a second one to then throw it for the win. So pretty keen to see how that goes. They've had lots of 4/1s with the deck, but haven't been able to convert. Obviously with the red splash as well, you get access to blast effects, which are very effective removal for things like Murktide, and also are quite strong against 8-cast Cephalid Breakfast. Obviously a lot of the sort of blue control decks as well. You could play this in a way that you don't actually show red in game 1. I think you will with 4 mints. You just get to a stage where you want to. But I have definitely had moments where I've been able to play a green-white strategy in game 1, and then have my opponent kind of have to think about, is this player on straight green-white, or are they playing the red splash, the black splash? And here we are both, because obviously Plague Engineer as a Fiend Artisan target is just really strong. And Grist as a Green Suns target is even better. So why not? I think right now on Magic Online, there's definitely a drop in Wasteland decks, I would say. I feel like mana just isn't... Yeah, I feel like people are getting away with pretty greedy mana bases at the moment. And there just aren't that many decks in the format that are really going after it, other than things like Blood Moon. So I do think that the 4 colors, you're not going to get sort of stuck too many times by splashing that additional color from the usual kind of 3-color builds. There are no Thalias, which makes sense. In a lot of Naya decks, you typically don't see Thalia because of Punishing Fire, usually an increase in non-creature spells, so the taxing effect on you actually becomes too much. So obviously having the Minskin Boos as well, you don't really want to have the Thalias here, so we do have Esper Sentinels to tax in some ways, and then obviously the Deafening Silencers in the sideboard, which is really nice. if you look at the sideboard as well, this is probably a trend that has been happening for a good 6 months now, where I would say, other than key creature targets like Plague Engineer and Gaddock Teeg, a lot of Maverick sideboards are either free spells or 1 mana spells. So Surgical's free, Deafening Silence is 1 mana, Blast are 1 mana, Dismember, can cast it for 1, Force of Vigor, free. So I think that really shows that the format has sped up. And for a deck like this, where you have a pretty good mid-range deck, you don't need to change too many things in the mirror against depths, against depths like decks like Death and Taxes. But against the combo decks, you really want to be able to own that opening, either free spells on their turn with Surgical or Force of Vigor, or turn 1, have Deafening Silence or Pyroblast up to really allow yourself to live to the mid-game, where you can start green sending for things like Collect Oof, maybe getting an Endurance down, and actually living to that stage. And I think that's pretty key for a lot of players to pick up on, is having cards like Aethersworn Canonist, or maybe even Archon of Emeria in the board, is nice. They're creatures, they're taxing, they're pressure, it fits into Maverick's shell. But I think right now we just don't have the luxury of that. I think that a lot of decks are just going to kill you before you actually get that into play. Especially if you think about being on the draw against a deck like Tess, or Ant, or even Doomsday. Having a Canonist in hand, they're going to get 3 turns. 1, 2, pretty much 3 turns. That 2 turns and your turn to actually kind of do their thing before you get 1 piece of interaction down. So having Deafening Silence is really nice. Obviously, the upside of Canonist is that it has a bit more flexibility against decks like Elves, but Deafening Silence just does what it does so well that I think there's a real skill in sideboarding these days with knowing what does the job really well and not needing the extra fluff. So something here like Dismember. Playing Dismember, which is typically a 1-for-1. Not playing Part to Exile, which obviously gives your opponent a basic most of the time. Or paying, the extra 2 for Council's Judgment. It's about really understanding kind of in the matchups where you want removal, like Dismember, or potentially something like Council's Judgment. How many times are you actually going to get to that stage where you're happy to trade 3 mana for 3 mana? Maybe you want to Dismember a 3-drop and kind of win on mana there. So I think, a lot of players can probably look at their boards, especially for online, and make sure that, you have a plan in those early games against combo to actually get to the stage where you can start casting your creatures and getting your own plan developing. We also don't see Morlock, which is obviously a card we can't test online, sadly, but is coming. But I believe the flex spots that Scotty had were around the Endurance numbers, the Esper Sentinel numbers, and the Knight of the Reliquary numbers. So I think if we did see Morlock online, it would probably be the 4th Endurance and potentially the 4th Minsk, and then go with a 3-3 split with 2 Morlocks. Not sure if you'd play the 2 main, but I think you definitely start with at least 2. So yeah, pretty keen to see how this goes. A big thank you to Scotty for reaching out and wanting to go through this. We've already had a pretty good discussion through email. And of course, if you want to get a donation deck list online, you can check out the support page on thegreensonzenith.com. But that's it for the DeckTech. We'll see you in round 1. Hey team, here we are with a opener on the play with no green source, which I'm not a big fan of. Obviously, this does have a little bit of a plan. We have Endurance, Pitch Endurance against any fast combo decks. We have the white for Swords to Plowshares, some Mana Denial in the Wasteland, but I think it's just it's back to the adage of, if I can't cast my spells, I'm not keeping my hand. And we have a lot of green spells off the top, which would just kind of be dead draws, so pretty happy to mulligan this. Luckily, we also can mulligan towards something like a Ignoble Hierarch or Esper Sentinel start, so see how that goes. Well, this is actually a funny one, because now we don't have white mana, but we do have 2 lands. We do run into Wasteland a little bit. And we do have sort of an artisan start, but I honestly think a 5 isn't too bad here. Especially if it's 2 lands, noble, and then 2 threats, or even 1 threat and removal. We also do have those Silver Libraries to recoup from a loss from Mulligan, so I'm pretty happy to go again. And here we go. Pretty happy to keep this. I probably want to drop a Green Sun Zenith. I really like turn 2 Grist here. I also like the Endurance, but I also like the Swords. So there's a few things to think about here. It's definitely 1 Green Suns, and I think it's just going to be the Endurance here, and try to go Green Suns for Grist, and then just make sure we have the 2 lands as well for turn 2 Grist. So I think it just is the Endurance, and if they're a fast combo deck, they're a fast combo deck. Alright. Happy not to show the Windswept first either. Just going to go for Savannah into Green Suns. Opponent thinking on upkeep, which is pretty interesting. But this is kind of exactly what I asked for in 2 lands, a mana accelerant, a threat, and a removal. So I think the quality of this 5 is a lot higher than the 6 and the 7. Even though the quantity is lower, I'm more than happy with that. There is a world as well where by keeping the Endurance and dropping the Swords to Plowshares, I would say one of the biggest threats in the format from a Swords to Plowshares perspective is Delver. And having the Endurance is pretty much like a removal spell early on. But I think it's worth just having for now. Alright. Getting mana online is really nice. Obviously next turn being able to potentially fetch and play this Grist would be fantastic. Cavern. Okay, so it's going to be a creature deck, which is this hand suits really well. Once in Cavern. Okay. I wouldn't expect once to be in humans, which is what I just thought of when they played, obviously, Cavern naming human. Simian Spirit Guide. Okay. We're probably going to be looking at a initiative deck. Especially if they're playing Simian Spirit Guides. So I assume they're not so much a Blood Moon deck, and more so just a kind of creature beats deck. So getting the Grist down next turn and ticking up is probably where I want to be. Chalice on 1. That's going to be fine. Okay. Obviously want to play the Windswept here and fetch for Bayou. And then just get this Grist down, tick up. An Ignoble Hierarch going to the bin is actually quite nice because Chalice is currently turning it off. We do have Green Suns for Outland Liberator to get rid of the Chalice. And we also just have 4 mana for Minsk up at the top, which is really nice. We also have 2 creatures, so if they did have something like, say, Ancient Tomb, Spirit Guide, and... Oof, okay. Fury's pretty good, because I guess they can just either trade with the Grist here and leave us with the 1/1s. Okay. But no land drop for them. Another Swords, not great. Happy to play the Plateau and just pass here. Opponent used the Once Upon a Time for a Spirit Guide to get this Chalice out. Which means it was, you know, it was a once that didn't go for a land there, which is pretty huge. I expect they have probably another 4-drop in hand, maybe another Minsk. Because they currently have 4 cards, obviously just 1 land, not even a soul land. Wow. So we're definitely getting some time here. Library's a pretty fantastic draw. Our opponent's pretty choked on mana. We just have slow threats here. And the library is going to allow us to come back from that mulligan to 5. So this is the big turn here. Did they draw a land? Fable. Okay. So this Goblin Shaman token can start getting in to give them some extra mana. Oh, but Minsk is very strong. What do we have? Okay. We also have Green Suns for Outland Liberator. Yes. Let's have a quick think here. I don't really want to take the Noble. But if I'm going to Minsk this turn, get a Boo, make it a 4/4, attack them, they go to 12. The following turn, we could potentially Green Suns for Questing Beast, attack for 8, and then Minsk the Boo token at their face, which is pretty strong. My only thought is there a world where we want to pay for the Ignoble Hierarch just to be able to see cards deeper if we are going to Minsk first? Because I do want to find a land, most likely. I also don't mind Green Suns for Knight of the Reliquary, which will be a 3/3. I think it's get minced down this turn. And then I think this is a case of get them dead before the mana that they have matters. So I think they obviously find a land here by just cutting 2 cards and trying to draw into another land if they didn't find a soul land off the top. Chalice and Caves. At least a Fury here, a Vote, is pretty tough for them because it has to deal with either the Boo or the Minsk. They're attacking me. Then we won't worry about that. Four mana seems like the sweet spot here. There's the Fury. Getting rid of a Minsk. I wonder if they take out 2 and these 2. Okay. Oh, Palace Jailer potentially. Chaos. Okay. So Fiend Artisan will currently be a 1/2/3 to 4/4. I do want the land, but we also get to attack and potentially take the initiative. I also don't mind just putting back the Fiend and getting a big knight. But I do like the thought of being able to turn on Swords to Plowshares by green sunning for Outland Liberator and then just trading for the Chalice. And I don't think we can pay for here. I guess we could go down to 11. Yeah, I think this actually works out pretty well. I do want to attack first as well. It's just tough because even like Minsk throw the caves is lethal. I guess maybe if that's a play, then I should have not paid for the Outland Liberator. Like maybe this is a point where I've actually just paid for a card that's just going to die in my hand. Or that's just going to be in my hand when I go to 0. But they've already gotten rid of 2 Minsk. But next turn I do potentially get a triple spell. Fiend, Swords, and Swords. I guess they actually don't have the mana, which is nice for us, for a Minsk and Boo. Huh. They play the Ancient Tomb. Another Minsk. So close. Is there a world where we can attack here and then throw with the Minsk for 8? I think if we attack, that is double block. That's probably why they played the Elvish Spirit Guide out. And then, of course, if we Swords one of these, they don't get there either. I think the play might just be Wasteland the Tomb, Swords the... Ah, but we kind of want to take the Undercity, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 mana, which is 2, 3, 4. So I think we do just take the Wasteland here. Put on top, put on top. Hit the tomb. Attack, see how they block. No blocks. Wow, then I should have. Damn. No, we're all good. For a second, I thought that they might be able to get there, but this should do it. Ancient Tomb. So we block here. And then swords the caves. Oh, but we take the trap. Oh, no. Oh, no. A huge misplay. Yeah. I should have thought about that. Tough. Tough. Well, that's definitely on me. Not so much the deck. So how do we sideboard for here? Minskers and the Questing Beast is quite nice. I can just see the 4 Endurance coming out for the Dismember, the Plague, and 1 Force of Vigor. I always forget about that 5 damage. The Esper Sentinels aren't great, but they are early fodder for the Fiend Artisans, which is nice, so I could see an extra Force of Vigor for... Collector Oof does a little bit, especially turning off the like Chrome Mock starts. Yeah, that's definitely on me. I could have also swords my own creature. Fiend to gain 5. Yeah. Pretty happy to keep this. We have Acceleration, which is great. We have Dismember. Plague Engineer could come up. Fiend is a little bit of an issue. Oh, sorry, Fury, but we'll see. Plague, I don't believe gets rid of many of their creatures unless they play things like Elite Spellbinder, but just being a Death Touch, it also interacts with their combat damages. I think good enough. But yeah, pretty rookie error for me, so hopefully we can get this one back, because it's literally on the board. It's the kill is literally on the board. Chalice is fine. Okay. I don't really want to run another creature into a Fury, so I'm happy just to hold up the Dismember here. Next time, potentially go for Grist. I was going to fetch for my basic anyway, so... I guess I could also just get my basic off the Wooded Foothills, get the Bayou off this, which allows me to pay 2 less life for the Dismember as well. So I think that's fine. So let's go Bayou. Flow to black. Just remember this, untap. We get to Plague and Wasteland if we want to. Dismember pretty handy there. Now I'm pretty happy to go with Green Suns for Outland Liberator. Just for the Chalice. And if it gets to untap, it gets to untap. I really want to be wastelanding a Soul Land here. I don't think taking off the Cavern is the biggest hit right now. Oh wow, and this Outland Liberator flipping as well is pretty fantastic for us. Means it's going to deal with the Chalice without actually trading. Now we get to play the Grist and also wasteland them, which I think is fine now. And then also hold up Sword and wasteland the Cavern, just to keep them off potentially a Minsk. They're down to 2 cards. Sylvan Library in the bin. Obviously a solid card, but here I'm okay with what we have. Green Suns for Ramanap's pretty sweet. That's also pretty good. Happy to attack with everything. I guess Plague does deal with Minsk and Boo, you could say, because it does deal with Boo as a 1-1. But only if you get it down before Minsk and Boo comes down and makes a Boo a 4-4. But yeah, that game one's tough. But I think it's a case of learn and move on. This is a really strong card in this position, because it also just keeps other artifacts or enchantments off the field unless my opponent actually has a way to deal with it as well. Swords to Plowshares, Ignoble Hierarch in the bin. Also didn't really show much other than Dismember in this matchup, or in this match, which is really nice. For game 3, opponent doesn't know too much about what's happening. Maybe even moves away from the Magus plan, knowing that we have Dismember, which obviously just plays into Magus really nicely. Look, potentially a Fury here could save them some time, but I don't think it's going to be game-winning, so thankfully get that one. I think boarding is fine. 2 Dismembers. Yeah, and the Plague with the 2 forces, especially on the draw. I think we want to access to these to turn off something like Chalice for 1 on turn 1. Yeah. Let me know in the comments. A big thank you to you for watching as well. But of course, if you do see something that you would change, let me know. Happy to hear your thoughts. A Force of Vigor Dismember hand with like 2 lands would be pretty perfect. A little bit of an answer for everything in that position. Other than potentially like a turn 1 or turn 2 Minsk. But we do have Krakus for that as well. So really looking for a hand that we can keep where we're just not locked out by, say, Chalice for 1. Which is also pretty tough because there's some pretty good hands that just run into a Chalice. Like this, I think is just a little bit too slow. We can't even cast the turn 2 Minsk. Sorry, the turn 2 Fiend Artisan. The Knights will be 2/2s. The Minsk is far off, so happy to mulligan this. Tough, for sure. Is a 5 going to get there? Like, I think here we would drop the Peatland, keep the double fetches. We have Sylvan Library to try to come back from this, or dig for some removal. Minsk is kind of an endgame. Fiend is an early creature. They did keep 7. I think we try this. Leading on the Wooded Foothills, because it can get a forest, and then the Windswept Heath can go get a plains if we really want to. Okay. Not too much we could do there. We draw some nice outs though. And a single green source actually turns this Minsk on as well, which is kind of cool. Okay. I'm probably thinking about Once Upon a Time here, potentially. No. Okay, so Dismember's no longer an out. They have a 4-turn clock. Tough. These other starts, sadly, you just have to kind of take some times. Yeah, attack for 6, we can get 1 down. It's gonna be it. Not the finish we wanted, especially after that throwaway in game 1, but we'll learn, we'll come back to this, and I'll see you in game 2. Hey team, I wanted to come back to this, because I think there is a line to win. I believe what we should have done is, well, knowing what our opponent did, obviously attack with Boo, they don't block, play Minsk, throw Boo for additional 4. The other line is we can play the Fiend Artisan pre-combat, which was mistake number 1, because getting Forge counters onto the Boo doesn't really change a whole lot. Would much rather have the Fiend Artisan as a big threat because of our plan. So we play Fiend Artisan off the Savannah and the Bayou, which will be a 4/4. We attack with the Boo, we take the Undercity, and then we make the Fiend Artisan a 6/6. We then want to Swords the Reflection of the Kiki Jiki, just because of its ability to activate at instant speed on their turn. They then most likely go to attacks. They attack with a 4/4, a 5/3, a 2/2, and a 2/2. We put the Fiend Artisan in front. Sorry, because they lost the reflection. So let's just start this over quickly. Fiend Artisan for Savannah and Bayou. So Fiend's gone. We then use the planes to Swords the reflections. We then go to their turn. They attack us for 11. We put the Fiend Artisan probably in front of the caves if it's going to be a 6/6. We take 6. We're at 11. They then trap us, but we can Swords our own Fiend Artisan to gain 6. And then next turn we attack with the Boo as either a 7/7 or we attack with it for a 4/4 and then throw it. So I think that's the line there. Fiend, attack, triggers, put him on the Fiend, Swords the reflection, they untap, attack with everything, Fiend in front of the cave, the 6 gets through, they try to get us with the trap, but then we Swords our own creature to live, attack with Boo the following turn, play Minsk. There it is. Apologies for not seeing it. We will do better. See you soon. Hey team, we're on the play with a 1-lander, Green Suns for Dryad Arbor, but just a little bit too rough. It's a 1-lander, no white source. Pretty happy to mulligan this. Better. Okay, probably happy to keep this and bottom the Outland Liberator. The curve is pretty high, but I don't mind it. I could start with a Bayou, especially against a Wasteland deck like Delver, just to make sure I have a white source for the Swords, but I think being able to untap, potentially draw into something to do on turn 2 is just too good to, you know, not play the Savannah here. Like, Sylvan Library off the top would be a fantastic draw. Green Suns for a Mana Dork would also be quite good. Snow-Covered Island makes me think, oh, Bauble. Huh. Okay, 8 cast. Which thankfully here we do have the Swords for Emery or Sai. The Wasteland currently isn't online, but it could potentially hit a Urza Saga. Actually, a deck I'm just about to finish in paper, which is really nice. Although Urza Sagas are quite hard to find. Okay. Happy to play the Wasteland because we can Wasteland before our opponent gets to tap the Urza Saga for mana. I do also have to think about, with Aether Spellbomb, if my opponent returns their own creature to their hand in response to Swords. So here, there's a little trick here, in that Urza Saga comes in with a counter on it, but the ability for it to tap for mana actually goes on the stack. So we can actually Wasteland this before they get to tap it for mana, which doesn't typically happen in Magic. Just a really weird thing that happens with Urza Saga. And that's their whole turn, which is great for us. A little bit away from that. Unfortunately as well, the Cradle here doesn't actually tap for mana currently. So Night next turn isn't actually going to be a definite. And they actually just turn the Spellman into a card, which is pretty great for us. That makes me think they're probably just looking for gas, because that also takes them off Metalcraft if they do need that Spellbomb as the third artifact. Wow. I did not expect this. Okay, well, that does turn on Cradle the following turn. So we'll see how this plays out. Wow, 8 cards. I would assume that they have a Force of Will in hand. So now the big question is, A, do we draw into a red mana? No. But we do have the option of either Questing Beast here or Knight. So Knight is great because it means that they're probably going to be stuck on 1 mana for the rest of the game if this does resolve because of Wastelands, taking them off things like their Seed of the Synod, Urza's Saga, maybe an Ancient Tomb. I also have access to Questing Beast, which obviously just closes the game out pretty quickly. I'm pretty happy to go with Questing Beast here because I kind of want the Questing Beast to be the Force fodder. I think Knight's just a little bit better, so pretty happy for them to use the Force on this. The one nice thing about Karakas as well is that it's the best removal spell we have against 8 cast. It deals with Emery, it deals with Sai. A lot of great things happen because of this card. There's another Emery, which thankfully with Karakas in play is not going to do a whole lot. They actually put 2 more Sagas into the bin, so they only have 1 left. So here we get to go bounce Emery, play Knight, another Force, pitching Sai. Interesting that they didn't get rid of the Emery, because with the Karakas in play, outside of Pithing Needle, the Emery does nothing. At least Sai, you can get priority back before we get the chance to Karakas it. Okay. Pretty happy just to attack with the Dried Arbor here and then hold up the Endurance. We don't have access to red mana currently, but I think that's okay. I think one thing so far in this league is that mana has been a little bit of an issue when it comes to mulligans. We are running 22 lands, 4 creatures. I could definitely see an uptick to 23. I usually find 23 is like the nice kind of middle spot. I also don't want to target them because I don't want to put any of these cards back into their deck. And knowing that we have both Swords and Karakas, yeah, we don't really care about Emery, so. Library's pretty cool. Let's play that off the Cradle. Attack with both of these. Hold up Endurance. Hold up Sword and Karakas. Unfortunately, our opponent just kept a pretty tough hand because the Wasteland hitting the Saga there before it could tap for mana, I feel like was a pretty key part of that game. And going into the boarding, we're obviously, I think, favored. We have the Blasts, we have the Forces. I don't mind the Dismembers or the Plague Engineer either, which is 8 cards. But I typically don't think we need the Endurances because we have so many great answers to Emery. Sometimes I keep 1 in just because of like flying threats. The libraries are a little bit slow, the Esper Sentinels are a little bit slow, so I don't mind taking those out. The Deafening Silences I definitely don't mind either. Obviously overboarding is a factor, but I think we could easily drop down on 1 Minsk, play the 3 Deafening Silences, which are still great. I find post-board, a lot of 8-cast decks don't have a quick start. Unless it's turn 1 Sai, it's typically like land pass. A lot of it is Saga Pass, untap Ancient Tomb, or a Mox Opal kind of play with Seed of the Synod, but I think I could see like maybe, 1 Endurance over the 3rd Deafening Silence on the draw, but we're probably bringing in that extra Deafening Silence on the play if there is a game 3. And here we have a pretty great hand. We have access to all colors and 2 great turn 1 plays, and also Karakas to answer an Emery or a Sai. So happy to keep this. We also have access to turn 1 Dried Arbor, turn 2 Collect Oof. I don't think a hand gets much better than this, honestly. This could just be a turn 1. Okay. I was going to say Kappa Cannoneer would be pretty good. And I think here we just want to hold up Pyroblast because of Kappa Cannoneer. That's the card I really care about. I could try to go for Green Suns for Dried Arbor, but it doesn't save us from Kappa. Which I kind of feel like this hand is what it's all about, but I don't really care about the Emery because we have the Karakas. The only reason I care about the Emery is that we get to untap with 2 mana. But I think I'm happy just to allow this. It's actually pretty interesting. We'll come back to this. I'm actually going to stop the recording. We'll come back to this now. So here we are. And this is a really key turn because the role of Karakas allows us not to really spend a spell on removing Emery or Sai. But I think in this position, it is correct to Pyroblast the Emery so that we can untap with 2 mana and keep building out. Whether that's Green Suns for Dried Arbor, Karakas play Deafening Silence. If it's, draw another land that allows us to Green Suns hold up Pyroblast. Number 2, there's a lot of things there. So yeah, there's a lot to think about because I think that potentially because of the role that I have for Karakas in this matchup creates a bit of tunnel vision where I think, no, it's never correct to spend a removal on side when we have Karakas. That's never the case. But maybe in this case it's actually correct because you get to untap with that mana, which could have played a massive part in the game, which we did do and lose, so maybe not. But yeah, maybe the role... maybe it was, Pyroblast here, and then untap with 2 mana, and go from there. But hey, let me know in the comments what you think. We'll go back to the game. That was pretty cool. We're gonna pass. Okay. So let's go Karakas on the Emery. And now it's a little bit tough because of Kappa still, but I also want to go towards that Green Suns for Collect Oof, so I think I will put my guard down for 1 turn and hope that that is going to be on the Saga plan next turn. But it's tough because there's so many things that we could be doing. But by ramping, we're also getting closer to just Pyroblasting the Kappa anyway and paying for the ward. We also get a Green Suns with Pyroblast up, which is quite nice. Wow, Dismember, that's quite aggressive. They have 2 cards left. I mean, if it's Force Blue card, it's Force Blue card, but there's not too much we can do about that. Wow, they didn't sack anything. That's very interesting, because now they don't get access to a Saga token this turn. That's huge for us. I mean, if they have Dismember, that's fine, but it stops them from having the Saga token for 1 more turn. What I would have done is made the token, untapped, and then you still have the Mox online, so you can use 1 land to Dismember, and then 1 land and Moxen to make your Saga token again. But this is the kind of draw where you can see where Deafening Silence on the draw is just too slow. Especially if they get Shadow Spear here. Wow, Needle, okay. Probably on Wasteland if they have another Saga. Okay, Caracas is fine. One Saga in the bin. It's quite nice. Honestly, here I think we just go for Blast on the Emery. Play the Fiend, and then play the Deafening Silence. Just to slow them down a touch. Wow, another Dismember. I don't think you care about the Fiend, because you can respond to any creature. Fetch land. So we take 11, go to 7. But then we have Grist and Pyroblast. Savannah. A little bit rough if they do have Force here, but they then lose that, so it makes that smaller. Like, the Thought Monitors still kill the Grist. My plan was to Grist, tick up to block the Construct, and then just hit. Thought Monitor so the Grist doesn't die, but see how this plays out. One nice thing there as well is that with Deafening Silence, the Grist is still a creature on the stack, so he can cast the Blast effect there as well. Alright. I think going into boarding, we'll just make that one change of the extra Deafening Silence. And probably the Questing Beast. Yeah, I think the Minsks kind of take that role in this matchup. Quite a slow hand. Turn 1 Noble, turn 2 Fiend into Wasteland, but no real interaction, so I'm pretty happy to mulligan this. A lot better, but no green mana, unfortunately. So I think we're going to be going to 5. There is a world where, like, the double force, like, allows us to stay in the game to draw into that position, but it's not where I want to be. Oh my gosh. Okay. I guess we bottom these two and keep Noble, Wasteland, Knight. And try to get the Wasteland plan going. But it's going to be tough. Opponent goes to 6. I think we just go for Savannah here. I could go for Bayou to have all the colors online, but we do have the Knight anyway. This also allows for, like, swords off the top, but we also have the noble for that anyway. Maybe there isn't a downside there for going for the Bayou. Obviously, the Saga start I'd love to see, but I don't mind the Knight coming down. A Seed of the Synod here is good because it turns on Metalcraft for them. And I think because of this third artifact, I'm happy just to play the Knight next turn. Obviously, Green Sun's off the top for Collect Oof is very good. Okay, well now they turned off Metalcraft, which is pretty interesting. See what we draw. Okay. That really makes me want to go for Knight here. Because if they force the Knight, then they don't have the force most likely for the Minsk. This also means next turn we get 2 Wasteland and Minsk if the Knight survives. Thankfully, Saga isn't an issue here, unless they have Natural Needle. But even then, we just have, like, the Minsk and Knight beatdown. Something like Dismember and Needle would be pretty tough. Even one Dismember, taking this off the Knight, is pretty big. But then, we do just have double Wasteland on the Saga and Seat. Alright, they're digging. And I think we know what they're digging for. It's either one of those. Yeah, Dismember. Alright. Oh, they go up to the Ignoble Hierarch. Does that mean they have what does that mean? Pretty happy to attack here with the Knight. And then I think here I'm happy to take them off the Seat. Also makes this a 6/6, which takes it out of the range of Dismember. Size a little annoying, but not the worst. We hopefully have Minsk here off a land. Nice. I kind of like just getting a Wasteland here. Could get Caracas, but don't really care about it at this moment. Oh, we're so close to killing them as well with this Knight. Could attack them for 2, put them to 8, and then put them to 1. This is actually pretty interesting. Yeah, I nearly could have attacked and then sacked and thrown, but this is a pretty great spot anyway. maybe Pith Needle is a start on Minsk. If they can't kill the Minsk with an attack, do they even have an attack? That's the big question as well. Just the Sigh. Maybe because they are thinking about Caracas. Okay. Happy just to Green Suns first for potentially collect Oop to make them have to do something right now. I assume they have Otawara, which they can cast just for 3 thanks to the Sigh. Go for Oof. We still attack. They lose this Thopter. I guess they can dismember still, but it's tough. They have 2 cards left. Take them off the Saga and see what they do. Nothing? Huh. There was also the line of just attack with the Knight and knock at Caracas. But maybe in that position I'm just being the safer player and I don't need to be. Nice. Alright. We're back on the board, which is nice. Definitely a few key moments there that we can discuss, but yeah, good to be on the board. We'll see you in round 3. Hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Another kind of odd hand because we don't have access to early mana acceleration or the turn 2 Fiend. We do obviously have like a solid curve, but the Plains is a little bit... I guess the Plains and the Wasteland here are a bit awkward. And just for that, like, I'm just not a fan. Like, imagine if we played the Nurturing Peatland and got it Wastelanded. Having the Plains and the Wasteland left is just really tough. And honestly, like, I don't really see much of a plan with this hand. Like, turn 2 Fiend, turn 3 Knight, maybe have 2 Endurance. I'm pretty happy to mulligan to a hand with a better start. This isn't really it. It does cast the Sentinel and the swords, but it's a bit of a yikes. Okay. Happy to keep this. And I think just because of the mana, I'm happy to drop the Grist and the Cradle and just go Forest into Hierarch. And then potentially there's a world where we get to turn to Oof for the win against the deck. Maybe Endurance is good enough. Not too sure what our opponent is on. Okay. Well, hopefully still turn 2 is just good enough for Collector Oof. Key's pretty good. Just don't want to see like a Karn. What do they have now? 5 mana nearly? Ugh. I mean, not the worst. I think Green Sun's here for Oof still does a whole lot. Wow, they tick up. Okay. Maybe. Just maybe. Okay. They potentially go for Bridge here. And then cast a Bridge. Okay. That's not too bad. I don't mind that. Especially with Double Wasteland. They're going to get to a stage where they just have too many cards. Oh, we also get to attack the Karn here. Because it's just 2. And then we can start attacking with the Ignoble Hierarch as well. I will play this. I mean, turn 2 Fiend. Sorry, turn 2 Oof. These are why we play them. The Gaddock Teeg of the modern era. The Scavenging Ooze of the modern era. The way that Maverick stays in tier 3. Okay. So this can now be killed, right? I have 3 cards in hand. Endurance. Honestly, here, I think we just turn Ignoble Hierarch into Outland Liberator. And say go. I mean, Liberator destroying on attacks is really good here. Especially if they try to keep that Ensnaring Bridge open. We might even have a reader right now. Outland Liberator sees some legacy play, but typically out of Maverick you don't really see it. Other than Maverick, I should say. Sweet card though. Sad to see Qasali Pride Mage fall behind. There are some benefits, like Qasali Pride Mage doesn't get hit by Plague Engineer on human, and in paper tournaments, keeping up with Day or Night can be a bit of pretty tough. It can suck. It can really suck. Also, Exalted can just be good enough sometimes. Oh, wow, the Frenzy Trapbreaker just... Oh, okay. Nice. There we go. That's what we want. Okay, this is going to be tough on the draw again. I do like the Forces and the Teeg. The Endurances can most likely just come out. Dismembers, potentially? I'm not too sure, like, what they have. Like, do they run, like, an Echo plan? It's not good enough anyway. Could just be a Deafening Silence. Esper Sentinel Swords. I think it really comes down to, do we have Force of Vigor? So maybe just the extra green card is better than the Deafening Silence. But Deafening Silence on the play seems great. Mana just not online here. Again, a mana issue. Better, but is it good enough? Maybe we just have to wait and find out. Turn 2 Knight or turn 2 Library. Like, do we have to mulligan to Force of Vigor? That's the real question. This is a tough one because it's a fine keep. Probably dropping the Savannah here, keeping the double fetch lands for Knight. But if they do just have one of those starts, it's obviously very good. I think for that, like, we just have to try to go to 5 and hope it's good enough. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Wow. Alright, well, we're keeping Wasteland. Put back these. Oh my gosh, gonna put back another one. I guess we put back Plateau. We can't cast the Teeg, but that's fine. Pretty happy here to take out the Ancient Tomb. So they have access to 5 mana here. Maybe Deafening Silence in this matchup is just good enough in the blind. Do we draw a land? That's the big one. Hiya! No. Maybe swords can even come out. I guess this game is just going to be about seeing if we see swords or not. I don't think the orbs make me want to bring in something like a like surgical plan. That's a bit overkill. I think taking out the, like, 3 swords for 3... Deafening Silence is going to be fine. Two Dismembers, okay. That is 2 that they no longer have for Gaddock Teeg, potentially. I wonder if they're trying to just mill into LED? Is that a thing? Okay, there's an echo. Yeah. And now they can just Karn for Lattice, sacking the LEDs for mana. Maybe they don't play Lattice? Seems weird to not play Lattice. Surely they play Lattice. So they do have Forge here, of course. Like they can needle my Wooded Foothills here, but even if we got down the Gaddock Teeg next turn, I don't think maybe we'd have a play. Cool. So I think these and these can come in. The 4 swords can come out. Probably the 2 libraries are just a little bit too slow. But I could see a world actually where Grist comes out and a library stays in. Actually, Grist can attack walkers, so yeah, let's go. Maybe like a library is better than the 4th Fiend, just because you have control over how much you actually get. But really want that turn 1 Deafening Silence here. Potentially with a Force Opener. Like, can you imagine turn 1 Deafening Silence and then Force of Vigor on Saga and Key? Be pretty cool. Untap, play Teeg. Not too much you can do in a Mulder 3, but maybe that 6. I think the 6 was actually probably okay, but yeah, a little bit slow. I think the blasts are worth it just for maybe not all of them. Look, it's a slow hand, so we have pretty happy to mulligan this. Not great either. We do get to draw off the Sentinel most likely. Bottom the Cradle. Turn 1 Sentinel, turn 2 Ignobled. I think there's a better 5. Really want those forces to show up. Yeah, this isn't getting anywhere. Okay. Keep. Probably bottom Caracas. Green. It's actually a tough one. Esper Sentinel most likely replaces itself, but you never know. Especially with like land into Mox. We definitely want the Force. We definitely want the land. I think we want the Wasteland as well, if that's not too greedy. But Sadly, as a 6, this is great, but... Is it greedy to keep these 4? Drop the Green Suns in the Wasteland? I like the idea of Sentinel, especially with the Force of Vigor. Let's just go for that. Let's just see how that goes. Opponent goes to 6 as well. We'll go for a Savannah here. And then play the Esper Sentinel. Obviously we want to have the green card in hand for the Force of Vigor. Tough. Oh, we draw. Heyo. Green card. Forest. That allows us to build out our mana at least. Okay. Wasteland's pretty nice as well. But I do think that Wasteland has better targets. Maybe not. Like, I could hit a Soul Land. At this stage, I like going after their mana. Especially with Esper Sentinel, especially with Force of Vigor as well. Oof. Well, I guess now we are just going into beatdown mode. We can Ignoble Hierarch and then Force of Vigor the following turn. Oh, that's pretty good. So let's go Hierarch. Wasteland the city. And then in 2 turns we can hardcast this Force of Vigor on our turn. Do they have another land? I mean, Guy's Cradle at the top does it as well. Thaga's pretty good. Triple Wasteland, you gotta love it. Thing. Honestly, here I think we're just... I could get Dried Arbor, but I'm happy just to, like, maybe we want to get a red source off that. Attack first, put the Esper Sentinel as a 2/2. And yeah, now I'm happy to fetch for Tiger and just go boom, boom. Defense grid at this stage, I don't really care about. Okay. Where's that 4th Wasteland? Okay. Let's attack with Sentinel. And then we get to play Fetch Land for Dried Arbor. Knight and also Esper Sentinel. The Knight can't be hit by Dismember, which is pretty huge. The Esper Sentinels seem to be taxing enough. I think they just allow this to draw because we can't do anything in their turn anyway. I guess we could have played the Cradle open to try to draw into like Force and green card. One mana floating. Is it just Ensnaring Bridge? But then we do have... Oh, they go for LED. Okay. Echo. I think at this stage I'm happy to pay the life to get Dried Arbor out of the deck. Okay, we have Endurance, but can't because Deafening Silence. They've played a land for turn, I believe. Maybe not. Funnily enough, still no Deafening Silence, still no Blast. So it does happen, for sure. Might as well succeed because of the defense grid. Wonder what they're looking for. Yeah, nice. Very cool. I mean, very aggressive with our mulligans, but I feel like this sort of matchup where it's just fast combo, if you keep a good hand that has a plan, and it's like a 6 or a 7 that doesn't really have like key cards, you're just going to die with those cards in hand. So you might as well mull to a 3 or a 4 that allows you to put creatures on board ASAP, or some sort of disruption, and get there. So, very cool. Nice to be also in the positives. We'll see you in round 3. Hey team, welcome back. We're on the draw, but we have a hand we can keep, which is really nice. The mana's great. Early removal, early acceleration, Esper Sentinel for a bit of disruption. So pretty happy to keep this. Had a pretty good mix of decks tonight as well. Some you don't often see. I know that Cherry did very well with the Mystic Forge deck in the Legacy Prelim, I believe, or the Legacy Super, which is very cool to play against in the format. It's a very explosive deck. Alright, opponent's got a 6. Okay. Turn 1 library is very good. I think here I'm happy to go Sentinel off a basic. I don't want to get Wastelanded out too early on. So we get to go Sentinel and then Wooded Foothills off of to basic into Green Suns for Ignoble Hierarch, which then allows us to get this Minsk into play, which is pretty sweet. But I would assume with Barbarian Ring being the card they put into the graveyard, this is just going to be like a traditional green-red lands deck. But I could be wrong. This could also be something like a... Ooh, Chalice on one. We get to draw off that. Thank you. Wow, Sylvan Library's pretty great there as well. Let's be honest. Chalice Zero is fine. It turns off their Moxen. That turns off their Mox Diamond. Huh. I don't mind that. Disruption that just keeps on rolling is really nice for us. This also might pressure them to Sylvan Library even further, which is pretty sweet when you have, you know, Collector Oof and Esper Sentinel already in play, dealing 3 a turn. Kinda has to be some sort of removal spell here. But even a Punishing Fire isn't great because we draw a card off the Esper Sentinel. Barbarian Ring with Loam. Okay. But is that just too slow? That's the question. Let's attack for 3. And then try to Minsk next turn. So let's go Windswept Heath. Green Suns for 2 for Ignoble Hierarch. Pretty fortunate that a turn 1 Mox into Library didn't really equate to, you know, a turn 3 or 4 that hit us hard. Maybe a Tabernacle, but even then we still have pressure on the board. We could even get Dried Arbor and then just pay for the 3 creatures that are going to attack for 4. Like, Knight as a 2/2 just isn't good enough. So here we get to fetch for Dried Arbor, attack for 4, they block 1, and then we just have Minsk throw. We actually also just have Minsk, make Boo, and then attack with everything. Yeah, nice. Very cool. Okay, this is going to be an interesting matchup. I do like the Forces, I do like the Surgicals and the Dismember. Not a big fan of the Esper Sentinels. I'm not a big fan of the Collector Oof either. I think it's just a little bit too narrow. Everything else is really solid. Potentially Questing Beast. I assume they're a deck with Karakas, but they could also be a deck with Maze. Maybe the multiple, like, Karakas obviously is a card here that I want to be a little bit concerned about, so. Sylvan Library's still strong. Endurance obviously great. Knight's great. Krista's great. Ramanap. I think it is just Beast. And then if they have mazes, we have, you know, we have Wastelands and things like that. So we'll see how this plays out. But one of these free spells, I just want in my opener. Yeah, always nice to see the line with like Dried Arbor, and then obviously what you can do pre-combat to put lethal on the board. It's a pretty simple thing once you start playing creature decks, but There's always little things where it's like, oh, I should have had to Dried Arbor the previous turn to be able to attack for the extra damage here. Because it does matter. There's going to be a lot of games that you miss the one damage that is make or break. Swords. I could see a world where Minsc number 4 is better than a Manadork or potentially a Library, but I could actually see Minsc over a Fiend because we have so many ways to get to the creatures that we want that just making sure we like hit Minsc aggressively is quite good. And we also do have a lot of ways to deal with Karakas. So I think like if you're going to play full Minsc, it's against a deck like lands. Or Abzan, no, sorry, Naya-ish lands. But hey, a big thank you to Card Hoarder, who sponsored the channel and allowed me to play these decks. And also MTG Mate, who's an Australian online card seller at mtgmate.com.au. You can use code DOOGS for 5% off singles and have supported the channel since day one. So big shout out to Nick and the team. Really appreciate your support. Sadly, we won't be heading down to Eternal Weekend this year in Melbourne, but hopefully down the road we will. Look, this is a little bit awkward, but I don't mind it. Look, it's a Force Pitch Minsc, Blade Dried Arbor. We have, like, it has everything, but not mana. And I think that's why it's a bit of a risky keep. But hear me out. The reason I would keep this is because it has so much disruption that I think we could easily buy the time to get out of it. Would I keep this? Honestly, I don't mind it looking at it again. I think having the extra Minsc for the Force, you know, the Dried Arbor is really the only card that is a little bit rough here. Okay. I'm pretty happy just to hold the Dried Arbor for now. And just win swap pass. I don't want to lose a land drop this early on to something like Punishing Fire. And I can play around Wasteland to some extent. The only way I suffer from that is if we go basic Green Suns for Ignoble Hierarch and then untap with 3 mana and don't draw a 4th mana and have to wait for the Arbor to gain, you know, to be able to tap the following turn. Wow, no green? Honestly, pretty happy just to go for Forest and Plains here. This does signify a little bit that they do have a Punishing Fire, but we do have Surgical for that if we really want it. It's got to be Punishing Fire, right? March. Okay. For me, that's worth the Force here, especially at 19 life for them. Okay. I wonder if they just trade away the Blast Zone here. Plague. Okay. I don't think we saw black. But now we do. Nice. Good surgical swords, but I don't think that's really what the role of surgical here is. Just a land? Attack. I'll get a fetch and I'll fetch. Get the Taker. Play Minsk. I assume here we see a fetch and then a blast zone 2/3. So if the blast zone is the play, I assume they attack the Plague Engineer at either us or the Minsk. Maybe the Minsk if they want to try to finish it off with something like a Punishing Fire. But then they don't have the ability to then deal with the Knight, which then they lose the blast zone to Wasteland most likely. Yeah, just a really tough spot for them. So they were pretty happy to pack it in. I think here it's just a little bit too tough with 2 cards in hand that obviously aren't going to be interactive spells this turn. You know, Minsk and Knight just kind of throw it down. And I think what happened was we kept a hand where we were rewarded for our opponent either not having a great early game and owning that, or having an explosive early game, being able to interact with it early on, and then just drawing the lands to cast our mid-game spells, and it worked out. So pretty happy. Well, we'll see you in the next one. Hey team, welcome back. We are on the draw with a hand that doesn't do a whole lot. The issue as well is that if we start on swords, we can't turn to Fiend Artisan, which is a little bit rough. I think there's a better 6 here. And this is not it, but put back a Minsk. It's pretty much the same hand without the sword, so let's find a 5 that... Oh my gosh. What? Look. I think we got to keep this now. And probably just bottom land Minsk. And keep double land Karakas, Minced, Fiend Artisan. Tough. I really thought we'd find like a hand with like, Ignoble Hierarch, Esper Sentinel, maybe a Wasteland. But it wasn't to be. Preordained Snow-Covered Island. I'm going to assume this is like a Omnitel deck. Usually blue-green Omnitel is quite a deck that you could easily see coming with this sort of start. Snow-Covered Island typically for Icewind Quaddle. Preordained, of course, more of a combo card than like a mid-rangey card. Especially double Preordained. 1 top, 1 bottom with the first Preordained, and now 2 bottom. I think here we actually just want to fetch for Dried Arbor to make sure this Fiend Artisan next turn is online. Okay. That's kind of cool. 2, 3. That means Minsk next turn. Okay. There. 1 top, 1 bottom. We drew the Tager. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Minsk. I think I'm okay to run this into an Ice Fang. Does the 1 damage matter? 4 to 15 to 14. And then, like, attack, I don't think it does matter, so I'd rather probably just hold the Fiend back. I probably also want to turn this Dried Arbor into an Outland Liberator to see if we have, you know, some sort of play around Omniscience. Alright, we have Caracas. What do you got? Okay, that could lock them. But it doesn't. So I believe here that is going for either Cunning Wish or Invent. Approach. Interesting. All right. Let's look at what we like to take out here. The Swords to Plowshares, probably the Endurances. Some people like to think about the ETB as a way to get priority, but I think we just have better cards in Blasts, Silencers. I don't mind the Surgicals here, especially against a namesake deck like Show and Tell. The Forces. Ramanap's pretty dead. Oof is pretty dead. The libraries are a little bit slow, but we can kind of just like keep buying, which is nice. So might just be like a 2 here. I could see a Wasteland coming out, potentially keeping Ramanap as like a just in case. They have like a, you know, Ancient Tomb or City or something else start. See how this goes. Really want that Deafening Silence. See, this is just one of those hands. We do have a turn 2 Gaddock Teeg, but I don't think that's good enough. We do have Blast. Okay. We do have a Wasteland if needed, but pretty happy here to play Ignoble Hierarch, and then turn 2 hold up Blast, play Outland Liberator, and then if we want the Wasteland, we can find it through night. So it's going to look something like this. Turn 1 Forest, Ignoble Hierarch, play Windswept Heath, play Liberator, hold up Blast, and then hold up Night. I don't think it's worth trying to go any lower. Like, Deafening Silence is great and all, but I think this hand has a pretty strong plan as well. So we'll keep, and we'll bottom this. Chose to shuffle. Okay. Now it's tough, because if they are an Ancient Tomb build, I do want to have the mana open for Outland Liberator. So I think we've just given away that we have the Blast, which is pretty tough. Yeah, I think the fetch there was definitely not worth it. I think I allowed them to have this. Okay. Wasteland would be sweet. Windswept. I mean, this speeds things up. Opponent also very nice, asking what the deck is, seeing if it's a red Maverick, but obviously it's a full color version. So the card they got is this one. Let's try to blast this. Force, alright. Windswept. And now a response to the first thing they cast. Is this instant? Yeah, okay, so we don't bother about this. Yes, because they can go up at instant speed, so I have to just allow this, unfortunately. One top, one bottom. Oof. Yeah. Tough. Not too much we can do there. Maybe... Yeah. Yeah. Tough. Overall thoughts on the deck? Oh. There we go. I think mana was probably the biggest issue tonight. And I think one thing that I'd really like to see is potentially an extra wooded foothills, which still allows you to get every land in the deck. It takes you up to 8 as well, which is nice, or 23. And I think then you have the slot of either the extra endurance or the extra Minsk. I would say the extra endurance is slightly better. A, it's cheaper. B, multiples can just be on the field all at once, which is great. If you do expect a lot of Reanimator as well, then having the extra endurances in the deck is fantastic. And sometimes there are just, those starts where you have, double Minsk, and you get to the stage where you can cast one, but maybe not the other. If you are really wanting 4, you could also look at playing a different Planeswalker in the board and just running the 3. But I think that's probably the main change that I would make. There's nothing else really that stands out, and that's actually quite a good thing as well, because it means you can make a slight tweak and see how that performs, because I do think the extra land really helps, especially being a fetch land, because it just turns on all the colors you need, especially for little things like where we have the plateau in the opener, but a turn 2 fiend with like a swords or a Esper Sentinel can be a little bit rough. But overall, I do really like it. I think there's a real like strategy here that you can see, and you can see by the numbers of cards as well, by what you're wanting to target. The libraries were pretty good. There were times where they came up and were relevant. The Sentinels, look, against the Karn deck, they were fine, but unfortunately, we just didn't really have hands that had them early on that had another plan. So we didn't really get to see the power of Esper Sentinel, which is turn 1's Esper Sentinel, let's be honest. The Wastelands were great, obviously having all 4. I have seen some builds with 3, but I think the 4 Wastelands is great, especially with Minsk. You want to have Wasteland for Caracas as soon as possible, and having the full 4 is a great way to be there. So yeah, I think like 3-2 is pretty good. Obviously, there's a few mistakes in that first game against Initiative that could have got us there, and Omni's just Omni. You know, Omni's just going to get you all day, so nothing educational to say there. But yeah, I think like the 4 Artisans, the Outland Liberator, the Grist was good. There was probably a moment where, apologies, Knight of Autumn would have been cool. But against Omni, I do like Outland Liberator. But there is a thought about Knight of Autumn being a body that sticks around for Grist. But in saying that, having a 2-drop is also very good, because you already have maxed out on Endurance and nearly maxed out on Minsk. So I think, yeah, I think going forward, potentially the extra land. A lot of the mulligan choices tonight were just on mana. And I think that's one thing that I really like to get down and make sure is going to be something that I can rely on, especially for a long tournament. There's nothing worse than having to mulligan a lot of opening hands just because your mana, especially when the rest of the hand looks fantastic. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I didn't miss anything. Like, you know, Thalia is obviously great in some spots, but there wasn't a clear matchup tonight where I really missed her. Potentially Omni, but there are just so many good cards against Omni that you could have that I think if you're going to board into Thalia, there's just better things to board into, like Deafening Silence or, you know, the extra blast effect as well. So Scotty, a big thank you for the list. Really looking forward to, yeah, getting your thoughts, potentially running it back and seeing how it goes. A huge thank you to you as well for watching. If you do enjoy this content, definitely consider subscribing to the channel. A lot of you actually just aren't subscribers, which is fine. But I believe something like 61% of people viewing the channel do not subscribe to the channel. And if you got this far, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you're playing. I really want to see what you're playing in the comments, because there's a lot of sweet Green Sun targets or land targets you can play in Mav. And yeah, I'd really like to know what you've got going on. So big thank you once again. Catch you next time.